How do you build trust among employees? A couple months ago, I filmed an episode where I actually called 5 of my clients, leaders and educators from all around the world, and just asked them this question: how do you build trust with employees? It just so happened that even though I called about 5 men and 5 women, only the men answered. And I was like, oh, we can't just have a guys episode here. And so today, I'm gonna focus in specifically on 2 really phenomenal female leaders who I've had the joy of working with and meeting. And I'm gonna channel their wisdom and share their responses to the question, how do you build trust with employees? All right, I can't wait to introduce you to Julia and Irene. I am hanging out in a kitchen today, and there's a really good dad joke or dad metaphor that might be coming at the end of this video about why we're in a kitchen space. So hang on to that if you're curious enough. If I don't forget by the end of filming, I will share that with you. So Irene and Julia, let's introduce you to Irene first. Irene and both of these lovely people have offered to not be anonymous for context's sake. So Irene is the Chief Academic Officer for the state of Connecticut. So she's responsible for collectively the education of 1 billion people. That's not quite true, but a lot of people, right? Her role touches an immense amount of educators, teachers, classrooms, etc. And so when I called and asked her this question, or she didn't answer, but she called me back a couple days later and shared some really awesome stuff that I wanted to actually take notes on. So to not butcher her language, she's extremely quick thinker. And so I took notes in bullets because she was like, oh, this and this and this and this and this and this. So I want to just share kind of raw what she said so that you can channel some of her wisdom that she's learned throughout her entire career. And then I'll offer my 2 cents on it before introducing you to Julia. So Irene immediately said, make everyone feel safe. Before I even finished the question, she's like, gotta make everybody feel safe. It's safe enough that they reach some level of belonging. So safe enough where they walk in, they're like, cool, right? I'm meant to be here in some way, that sense of belonging. And that belonging, she then said, leads to leaning in, right? When people feel welcomed, invited, included, people also lean in and metaphorically want to contribute and add to whatever is happening in the space. And really importantly, if you're the Chief Academic Officer of the state of Connecticut, that safety and that belonging creates an environment where people are not afraid to share with you. I cannot tell you how many leaders I've worked with that are at the top of wherever they're at that crave truth. They crave people to just be honest to them within the organization. And yet what happens so often is they get these shaped answers that they think the leader will want to hear, as opposed to really just speaking their truth. One of the things she shared that was a bit vulnerable, which I really appreciated, was that with previous supervisors, with previous leaders that she was working with or under, personally didn't come from a place of trust. So even though she's trying to cultivate this place of belonging, she has worked for leaders, and we probably all have, who we don't just fully trust. There's some skepticism about what in the world's going on in their context. And so Irene committed to never letting her team feel like she did. And I love that idea of being able to reflect and learn from leaders that weren't so great. It's the same thing we do as parents, right? Whether you had awesome parents or terrible parents, we learn from things we liked or didn't like about how they parented, and we change the way we parent based on that. Irene shared that she really valued the details for people. And so what people care about, she cares about as well. She referenced some language that I'd shared during a workshop where she invited me in to work with all the principals in this particular district. And we were talking about this dynamic of listening to win versus listening to understand. And so that concept of really listening to understand, which originated, I feel like just an absolute truth, but language from Stephen Covey, but that idea of setting aside all of your perspectives just for a hot second and tuning in and paying attention to what they're really saying and trying to really understand and hear someone else. And then rapid fire, a couple that she shared, letting people bring ideas to the table and letting them run with it. It doesn't matter who does the work, you want people to bring an idea and say, that's amazing, make it happen and invite these 3 people to make it happen. And so really equipping people to do that. And her exact quote here was, you have to be willing to do what you are asking the team to do. And Irene is a master of following this, right? There's so many leaders, especially in education, that kind of stay in their little offices and the administrative level. But Irene is in schools, in classrooms, visiting, meeting with teachers, meeting with educators, so that the decisions she's making that will influence those teachers are based in conversations and connections with the people who her decisions affect. All right, thank you, Irene. Now I'm gonna share Julia with you. Julia is the Director of Student Orientation and Family Programs at Minnesota State University, Moorhead. And she's just got this electric life about her. When you meet her, she's like, she doesn't even have to complete a sentence. You just feel welcomed by her. She has an amazing ability at building trust and also creating cultures of connection, belonging, and trust. She replied to me, Irene, I talked to on the phone, Julia sent me an email. By the time she responded to me, I had already shared the past video that I linked previously where I called 5 of my clients right on the spot. And so she said, after I watched the video, I'm thinking it's maybe a good thing you didn't get a hold of me because my answer would not have been as philosophical or as insightful as the ones that you got, which is totally, Julia, even in an email, being humble, because her answers absolutely would be and are insightful and philosophical. And so what she said was, my answer would be unapologetically me. I believe that the best leaders build trust through vulnerability and authenticity themselves and leading from that space. And I think Julia does that. There's a way, like, doesn't feel like there's any mask. What you see is what you get. Julia is just Julia. And then she kind of commented on leaders that she's admired and trusts. And so she said, the leaders that I have valued and trusted the most are the ones that believed and trusted in me enough to be vulnerable and real with me. They did not hide their weaknesses or pretend to know things they did not, and they lead anyway. And that aligns with some of the most profound advice that I was ever given. It was actually right before I gave the first TEDx talk that I was ever invited to give. And someone shared with me as I was crafting and deciding stories I was going to share, what I was going to tell people. Leaders that share and acknowledge their own failures and highlight other people's successes are really great at building trust. And as a presenter, no matter what level of leadership you're in, if you can highlight and acknowledge your own failures, but then uplift other people's successes, relatability goes way up. As your awesomeness gets higher and as you make yourself more awesome, relatedness tends to go down for people, because we're all just these like broken little mushy human beings wandering around the world trying to figure it out. And so the more that we pretend that we have it all together, the more distrust we build amongst employees. So glad to introduce Irene and Julia to you. If you love this, I exist on the planet to amplify connection, belonging, and trust. We've created a ton of free resources and tools to do it. You can check that out in the link below, and I share very regular videos. There's hundreds of videos on the channel that are designed to help leaders and educators make connection and engagement easy. I'm Chad. Have an awesome day.